YouTube channel. Missed you guys. I know it's been a while, but coming on today to continue along with the series part 2 of the sign of the Son of Man. Now, very briefly, if you remember in the last video that we did, we talked about how the disciples asked Jesus for a sign of his coming and the end of the age, but we also went further to talk about how that was not the first time that Jesus was asked for a sign. If you go into Matthew chapter 16, which we will not read in this video, you'll see that Jesus clearly exploits the religious-minded Pharisees, and in not so many words, he exploited them by showing them that their faith, which they really had none, started and ended with what they saw in the natural. But it did not go beyond what they saw in the natural. They were a hopeless bunch of people, to say the least. But if you remember Jesus in Matthew chapter 24, we covered where he said, you know, before I give you the rundown of the things to come, I don't want you to be shaken. I don't want you to be deceived like these religious-minded people concerning the things I'm about to tell you. Because what Jesus was actually training them to do is to walk by faith and not by sight. So he had to prepare them before he gave them the rundown of things to come. So what I decided to do in this video, part 2, I wanted to paint everything in a broader context, not just talking about Jesus and what he said and why he said it in this chapter, but I wanted to kind of give an overview of why he said what he said. It really breaks down into 3 categories. So we're going to talk about the command, then we're going to talk about the promise, and then we're going to talk about the seed briefly in this video. So to look at the command, we want to go back to Genesis chapter 12, and it clearly states in verse 1 where Moses was asked by God to leave his country and his family members and to take all his belongings because he was going to take them over into a new land. All right. And the reason why God asked him to do such a thing is because his father was really steeped into what they call idolatry or idol worship, which in today's time would more or less translate into he was a very arrogant person. He exalted himself above everything. And God, being as loving as he is, told Abraham to get out of that toxic environment. But he didn't stop there at that command. He gave a promise, and that promise was that Abraham was going to become a father of many nations. You will see that in Genesis chapter 17. He was going to become a father of many nations, which is very important because those nations would turn out to be the Gentile nations as mentioned in the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament. Also, we have to pay attention and see that that mission could not be achieved without a seed. All right, so you will see that all throughout the generations, stemming from the Old Testament going into the New Testament, you will see how the seed is on its way. And I'm talking about none other than Jesus Christ, who was the seed. Okay, so I wanted to show you guys some examples about the seed. So remember, we talked about the command, which was given to Abraham to leave his country. And then we talked about the promise, which basically was saying that he will be the father of many nations. All right. That was the promise, but that could not be accomplished without the seed, which is Christ. So I wanted to show you a couple of verses in the Bible, a few verses in the Bible rather, that would show that this whole thing was about Jesus or Christ being the seed to fulfill the promise that was made to Abraham. So when we read Matthew 24 or Luke 21 or Mark 13, everything now will come into perspective so that we don't have a highfalutin idea of what this whole thing about Christ and his coming is all about. So we start at Galatians chapter 3, starting at verse 26, where it says, "For you are all sons of God through faith." Remember, we talked about faith in the first video. "For as many of you as were baptized into Christ, having put on Christ." You'll see that Christ is being mentioned as a garment, okay? There is neither Jew nor Greek. Look how he talks about two different cultures, two different nations. There is neither slave nor free. There is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you are Christ's, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. Then it moves forward to say in Galatians 3 verse 16, now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He does not say and to seeds like plural, as of many, but as of one, and to your seed who is Christ. So as we could see, we get a totality of the mission. The mission was for Abraham to become the father of many nations, or the Gentile nations. Okay, it was not just about Jesus coming, dying on the cross, raising from the grave, and then he goes to heaven, then he comes back and he sweeps all the Christians off the feet, and then he comes back with the Christians and rules and reign. No, we have to put everything into perspective. Okay, so Christ, who is the seed, who also, if we believe in him or put him on as a garment, now we become joint heirs of what? The promise that was given originally to Abraham. Okay, so now in future videos, we're gonna see how this all plays out and what exactly the rapture is all about, and we'll get a clearer vision as Christians. You're gonna see why Christ said many will hate you for my name's sake. There's a reason why he says that. In the next video, we will discover why Christ actually said that many nations will hate us for his name's sake. There is a reason, and it doesn't really have to do with, well, if you're Christian, we're gonna if you're just branded as a Christian, we're gonna come and persecute you. There was a way in which we were conducting ourselves, which provoked the nations to fulfill what Christ was saying. That's going to be very interesting. Until then, though, I thank you so much for joining me on this video. Please be sure to have a great day.